A Russian court has rejected an appeal by the Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich. He's being held in pre-trial detention in Russia and denies the charges. It happened in the last few moments. Our international correspondent John Sparks joins me now. John, this is a blow for him and his legal team, clearly.
Yes, a blow, a disappointment, but not unexpected. I don't think that there was really any realistic chance that Gershkovich would get the equivalent of bail in this situation. The court has said that he will be held until May 29th on espionage charges or spying. But I think that the trial is highly likely to go ahead. He's currently being held in a sort of notorious Russian prison called Lefortovo. It's where the Russian government, the Soviets before them, have held political prisoners, essentially trying to get bail to be held outside of a prison like that leading up to the trial. But this appeal, where we have seen him for the first time, this case, his appearance in Moscow City Court, was really about his pre-trial detention. It wasn't about the substance of those charges. The Russians say that he was caught red-handed trying to obtain classified material about an arms factory in Yekaterinburg. That's about 2,000 kilometers, east of Moscow in Siberia. The Americans have responded saying that his detention is totally illegal. Those are actually the words of the US President Joe Biden, and their State Department, their Foreign Office, said that this is a political case. The charges are bogus. So the Americans have been very strong on that. And I should say that the American ambassador, Lynn Tracy, was actually in court this morning watching this appearance where Gershkovich appeared in this sort of cabinet, this glass cabinet. The media were allowed in to take pictures of him as well. That's the first time that he has been seen since the end of March. The Russian Foreign Ministry didn't like the fact that the American ambassador was there watching proceedings, and they have complained, I understand, accusing the Americans and the British and the Canadians of gross interference in the Russian legal process. And their diplomatic representatives have been summoned, we understand, to the Russian Foreign Ministry's buildings in Moscow. And I should say that they also attended the Vladimir Kara-Murza sentencing yesterday. The British ambassador was there, the American Lynn Tracy, the ambassador, they were there as well. So the Russians do not like the fact that Western diplomats are turning up at these trials. They see that as interference. The media were let in briefly to take pictures, as we can see, of Gershkovich. He looked pretty calm. He has spoken to the US ambassador yesterday. She said that he was relatively healthy, in relatively good spirits. He's also he's been able to write to his parents in the States, so he was able to get some exercise and was eating properly. He looked pretty calm, but the situation is very serious, and I don't think there is any real prospect of the Russian authorities letting him out anytime soon.
To you, John, we can see live pictures from outside the court, outside Moscow City Court. These are the lawyers speaking. Let's listen. It may be in Russian, but let's listen in. Oh, we don't have any sound on that, I'm afraid. I can't bring you any sound on that. But John, just keep telling us more about this situation. I mean, in terms of how unprecedented it is, it's such a long time since a foreign journalist, especially an American journalist, and one of a sort of accredited mainstream media has been held like this in Russia, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't think that we have seen the arrest of an American or any Western journalist like this in Russia since really the end of the Cold War. I think it is unprecedented. Obviously, the experience for independent journalists in Russia is very different. You can see the press conference there held by the lawyers breaking up. But it is an unprecedented situation, and I think people will see parallels here between the closing of the public space, the increase in repression in Russia that journalists are facing, including international journalists, as we can see here, civil society, other people who are minded to criticize the Russian government and the invasion of Ukraine. That's what we saw with Vladimir Kara-Murza yesterday, the Russian British national who was sentenced to up to 25 years by the Russian court for essentially speaking his own mind about Vladimir Putin and the invasion of Ukraine. I think the case here with Gershkovich has its own subtleties, and I think a lot of people in Russia and outside think that what the Russians may be doing here is preparing this case, preparing Gershkovich for a prisoner swap. There are Russians in American prisons that the Russians would like to get back. They may be looking at this as a means, very practically, as a means to get Russians held in American prisons back. We saw that happen in December. An American basketball player called Brittany Griner was swapped for a Russian called Viktor Bout. He's a notorious arms trader. He was arrested in Thailand some years ago and extradited to the United States. Those two were swapped in December. And this may be part of the thinking on behalf of the security service, the SFB, and the Russian authorities, that they use Gershkovich, Evan Gershkovich. He's a 31-year-old. He's a relatively young journalist, been working for the Wall Street Journal. But they use him this way to swap him for somebody now in an American jail. Certainly possible.